For over 15 years, Saturdays and A Legal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The A Legal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
I'm getting breaking news in my earpiece here. Shohei Ohtani has hit another home run. Just early this morning, he hit yet another home run for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Talk about an impressive performance last night. This is going to be an impressive performance this morning. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. And for all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel, as well as all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Dave Manouk is in the top right. Ezra Ginsburg's in the bottom middle. I'm your host, Drew Mindell, here for the next couple of hours, getting set to talk all about the Winnipeg Jets. They're in action tonight against the Nashville Predators. It's a double dose of IC on this Saturday. You got the Illegal Curve Hockey Show now. You got the Illegal Curve post-game show coming up in just under 12 hours time after the Jets and the Preds. But for now, next couple of hours, all about the Jets, getting you set. Your game day starts now here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Gentlemen, good morning to you both. How are you?
What's up, boys? I'm doing well. I think Dave M is doing well, but I'll let him speak for himself. I like, by the way, Drew, how you glossed over the Jays' loss last night. We don't need to. That bottom of the eighth was just that was brutal. I mean, there's no other way to describe it.
Right. We're talking about the impressive performances because this show is going to be an impressive performance. If we wanted to talk about, bad things, we could talk about the Bombers' offense last night, but we don't want to talk about that. We'll talk about the Bombers' defense instead. A good thing. See, it's Positivity Saturday here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. I'm positive that Dave M is just as positive as I am about all the positive things happening. Right, Dave?
There's a lot of joy in Joyland, Drew. There's a lot of joy in Joyland. Absolutely. I'm very positive about lots of things. So let's roll.
I got to tell you, I didn't buy that. I didn't buy that whatsoever as Dave being especially positive or effusive as he had.
That was a little dismissive, Dave. I'll be honest with you. I don't know. I feel like that was a bit of a fake positive affirmation right there.
Yeah, I would agree with Ezzy.
I'll concur. I'll be honest with you guys. I was doing other things, not really listening to either of you.
Now we're talking.
As I usually am while I'm trying to get some stuff done before the show goes. So yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. It was a half-hearted attempt at best. Ezzy knows me. When you travel as much as Ezzy and I do together, it's hard to not have that understanding.
And I'll mention this, and I know Drew will back me up here. Before we get into the Jets-Preds game and the road trip and everything like that, great article on the website, Dave, about Scott Campbell and his mom and the Toba Center, and obviously Adam Lowry's connection to the Toba Center. So obviously, if you haven't checked out that article, go to legalcurve.com and check it out. Scott Campbell's mom, I forget her name, Dave. Diane. She'll be dropping the puck tonight for the Jets-Predators game. So it's going to be a very special, very emotional puck drop tonight.
There you go. Yes. Kudos to you, Dave. I mean, I don't typically like to give you bouquets and bouffants, but in this case, I will have to give you both for that quality article, quality piece you put on the website. So thumbs up to you, good sir. Thumbs up to the Winnipeg Jets. 2 thumbs up, in fact, as they get the 2 victories on the road trip that started this week off. Of course, the Monday afternoon matinee against the New York Islanders, and then Thursday, also not a Picasso in Philadelphia, but effective nonetheless, defeating the Flyers. So you see a Winnipeg Jets team that I think is sort of, again, it's a long season. So you're not going to be playing perfect hockey in games 2, 3, 4. There's a runway involved. But what you do see is a Winnipeg Jets team that I think is maybe ironing out or flattening out those sharp edges that might, develop and might take some time to get back onto your game and perform the way you want to do so. And I think you saw a lot of that, particularly, even going back to last Saturday against the LA Kings. The LA Kings are a pretty decent hockey team. At least, reputation-wise, they're expected to be a pretty decent hockey team. The Jets, had to battle through that game to get that victory on home ice, which they did. Then you play the 2 lesser teams this week in the Islanders and the Flyers, and you do what you're supposed to do. So I think you see a Winnipeg Jets team that, Yes, there's things to work on. Of course, there's going to be things to work on all 82 games of the season, but you see them sort of slowly beginning to sort of round into the form that they want to play with. For the most part, I would say this year is particularly impressive given the absenteeism from the lineup, as we've well documented over the course of the first few weeks and training camp and everything else once the injury bug started to hit the Winnipeg Jets.
Drew, it's funny you mentioned absenteeism. You make it sound like these guys just aren't reporting to the rink, like they're just staying home and and are absent from work.
The truant officer is are there still truant officers? I don't know. That's a good question. But the truant officer is hot on their case.
Is a truant officer like a hall monitor? Is that what that is?
No, the truant officer was, I think it's from a bygone era. I don't believe they still have any.
It's when Drew was in school.
Yeah, back in my day when
when Drew used to get the strap, Dave.
Exactly.
You know, if you were absent from school without permission, without
AKA truant.
Yes, truant, without notification, there was a person an officer in the community who would go around and find out why you weren't in school anymore. I mean, that's I don't know if they still have them, but you know, people can inform me if they do or if they don't. But
now they just have cops looking for you.
Yeah, Dave M knows what a truant officer is.
Dave, I feel like with Drew's mustache, he would be a great truant officer. Like he would just put his little uniform on with that mustache.
Well, I don't know that anybody's going to trust him with that little mustache of his, but there might be. Believe me, they send him looking after running after kids. The kids are going to be running back to school if they see Drew coming.
It might be effective. You never know. I might have broken through here.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Doug, by the way, says there are still truant officers.
There you go. I trust Doug.
Is Doug a truant officer though?
No, as far as I know, he's not.
He's not. I'm pretty sure Doug has never in his life been a truant officer, but that's okay. Right. In any event, going back to the actual topic at hand, the Winnipeg Jets and the performance on the road trip too far, as heading into tonight's game against the Nashville Predators.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that back, Drew, because I don't know how much more we could have talked about truant officers there. So let's stick to the Jets here. I was really impressed by the win against the Flyers, and obviously we discussed it at length on the post-game show, so you can check that out on this YouTube channel. But 14 different players have a point so far, guys, through 4 games. That's what stands out to me. Like, without Perfetti, without Lowry, those are 2 guys that would be in your top 9 if they weren't injured, and so you're getting contributions up and down the lineup, whether it's a Vlad Nemestikov, whether that's Morgan Barron, who's off to his best start of his career, sure. Whether that's Tanner Pearson chipping in last game, Parker Ford, he's chipped in. So I think that's what stands out to me is that the Jets are winning these games as a team. It's not just obviously the top line of Scheifele, Connor, Velarde has been lights out, and Scheifele and Connor have picked up where they left off, but they're getting contributions from up and down the lineup, and they're obviously getting excellent goaltending from both Connor Hellebuck and Eric Comrie, and they're let's be honest, guys, they're beating teams that they should beat. Mm-hmm. They should beat the Flyers. They should beat the Islanders. These are not great teams. Mm-hmm. Even without Perfetti, Lowry, and Sandberg in the lineup, the Jets are still a better team. And as Dave mentioned on 2 nights ago on the postgame show, the penalty kill is nearly perfect through 4 games, and so that's an awesome sign.
Yeah, which is, again, everything we've talked about this Winnipeg Jets team started and ended with the concept of depth, particularly in their forward group. And to Ezzy's point, the only forwards that have played this year that don't have points, well, Parker Ford, but he's only played 1 game, and Nikita Chibrikov. Every other forward that's been in the Winnipeg Jets lineup, starting with Mark Scheifele all the way down to Cole Koepke, has earned at least a point in this.
And the reason why I mentioned Parker Ford, I realize he doesn't have a point, but the goal that was scored by Morgan Barron, Parker Ford was right there and almost got credit for it, right? So I kind of let's give Parker Ford a half point on that one.
Yeah, he's in the right position, he's in the right spot, he's doing the right things to put the team in the position to score that goal. Now, obviously, it's a fortuitous bounce off the backside of Noah Cates of the Flyers, but again, if Noah Cates is not in that position, if Parker Ford isn't in that position, then Noah Cates isn't in that position, mm-hmm. and it doesn't happen. So they're doing the right things, which is what you sort of knew was going to be the case, or maybe you didn't know, but you sort of thought and you expected, given the way this team plays, given the discipline that they've demonstrated, really ever since Rick Bowness came in, and then Scott Arniel has taken it to a new level. This is the Winnipeg Jets succeeding, is when you can throw 4 effective lines at every single team. I mean, take the Jets' 4th line. Morgan Barron, who's off to an incredible start to the year. I mean, that fourth line is going to win its matchups against lower lines of opponents. They just are, because they're better than a lot of teams' third and fourth lines.
Mm-hmm.
The 3N line, same thing. They're going to win a lot of their minutes because they should be better than their opponents that they're facing off against on the ice. And the beauty of that is it's also taking away a lot of the difficult matchups from the Jets top line. Those guys are getting even a little bit of some softer minutes because they're not being counted on to go head to head against opponents' top lines so far this season as much as they did last year. The depth is we've been saying it. Depth wins you regular season games, and I think the Jets have demonstrated that so far this season.
Yeah, and the biggest question mark we had, regardless of if you had a fortunate schedule that was going to not be as difficult after the first couple of games, ultimately this team has survived, and they've taken a lot of penalties, and that to me is like the thing we need to be talking about is the penalty kill. The fact that the penalty kill has been as a 16 of 17 to start this season is incredible. And as just pointed out by one of the folks in the chat, has outscored with 2 shorthanded goals.
Yeah.
So they're and they almost had another one in the other game against, I think, the Flyers. So I mean, this is a team that is surviving, and I'm not going to say thriving, but again, and the other thing also worth mentioning is that you're not getting huge contributions from a points perspective from the defense. Mm-hmm. So Josh Morrissey, a guy who's on average 3/4 of a point to a point per game player, he's not right now producing. And I don't mean that from a negative perspective, because if anybody watched his 26 minutes against in the last game or the game before, we know that Josh Morrissey is doing a lot of things to make sure that the Jets team is in a position to win games. So, but I'm just saying, you're not even getting those contributions right now. The only defenseman who's scored is Logan Stanley in 4 games. And I'm serious. And
I know
Logan Stanley has, with a goal and an assist, has the most points from the Jets defense. Again, not a criticism. It's just a statement of fact.
Yeah.
But I just think that it's an interesting one. So to me, yeah, there's no question. The depth, we saw it in the games 1 and 2. We saw the Scheifele line kind of dominating and the rest of the lines kind of being like, eh. But now, in the last 2 games, you've seen those other 2 lines, in addition to the Scheifele line, stepping up. And you're like, okay, well, that's significant because you're not reliant on one. Any team can almost any team can shut down one line. But if you get that contributions from everyone, it's a different story. So to me, there's no question. The story early in the season, just 4 games in, is the depth of this team, is the penalty kill 100%, and is the fact that you're not even necessarily getting those contributions from the defense yet that you expect.
You're absolutely right. Let's continue the conversation this morning here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, live from Canada Life Center. Mike McIntyre joins us on the program. The Jets morning skate about to take the ice in about 15 or so minutes time. Mike, we appreciate you jumping on early with us. Good morning and nice to see you. How are things?
Things are great, gentlemen. The Jets are just trickling onto the ice here. Do you guys get bonus points for early attendance at these things? Like, is someone keeping track of who's out here early, like you would say at school, putting in the extra work? Does it mean more shifts?
I don't know if I'm sure you weren't listening to the start of the show, but we had an in-depth conversation about if there are still truant officers at schools. So maybe the Jets themselves also have sort of a unofficial truant officer, to keep making sure everyone's on the ice at the right time. Whatever coach it was said that if you're 5 minutes early, that means you're 5 minutes late, whatever,
right.
Back in the day.
Well, I'm counting, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 6 skaters and a goaltender out here, and a couple coaches. So a lot of early birds hoping to get the worm, I guess, today.
There you go. The Jets have been getting a little bit of the worm in terms of victories on that 2-game road trip and the game against LA, last Saturday. Mike, we were talking about it, that it's the depth that jumps out to us so far that is most impressive for the Winnipeg Jets so far. Up and down the lineup, they're getting contributions from, a number of different forward groups and everything else. That's what the Jets, I think, are built upon, is their forward depth, and that's where they're going to really tap into it for their success this season. What are you seeing from the Jets, particularly their forward group and the depth thereof so far this season?
Yeah, there haven't really been any Picassos painted by this team yet, but I think that's to be expected. We're going to see some finger painting, some color by numbers here early in the year, guys. and that's a product of obviously who's not in the lineup. For folks saying the Jets just don't look the way they did last year, well, it's hard to look the way you did when you're missing some cornerstone pieces, and certainly Dylan Sandberg, Adam Lowry's absence loom large, as does Cole Perfetti's. But fortunately, the Jets went out this summer. They got some additional depth. They already had, I think, a fairly deep, organizational pool, if you will, going all the way down to the Manitoba Moose. They just didn't expect to have to tap into it as early as they have here this year. And yeah, I mean, the first game or two, I think we could probably agree it was largely carried by the top line. But certainly over the last two games, both games on the road, some of that depth shone through, a lot of secondary scoring, and, some contributions in places you didn't expect it. And I'll throw it out there at the very top of the list. Obviously, Morgan Barron, and what he's been able to do. And I guess the other big story for me, guys, early in the season has been the penalty kill. Like, think about it. Mm-hmm. If the Jets' penalty kill was just average so far through 4 games, we might be talking about a 1-3 team instead of a 3-1 team. And, they've just given up that one power play goal, and that goes back to the season opener, and it was essentially a 5-on-2 because Josh Morrissey lost his stick. Like, other than that, and I mean, they've scored a couple shorties, they've had all kinds of chances. The power kill, I guess, as we call it. So, that's been a real surprise early, and Morgan Barron, of course, is part of that as well. So I think, if you were talking about who's been the MVP of this team through 1 week of the season, Morgan Barron would be right up there at the top of the list.
Absolutely, Mike. And sticking with the depth, forward depth, I want to ask you about Tanner Pearson, because obviously Johnny Taves, Gus Nyquist, those are the two big acquisitions. Pearson and Koepke, they're depth forwards, and they would admit that themselves. Pearson's really been impressive. 2 goals, obviously one of them, into an empty net. But what's kind of stood out to you about Pearson? Because he's a guy, I think you'd agree, even though he's a fourth line guy, if you're in a pinch, he's a guy that can move up and down the lineup.
Yeah, he's been a revelation to me, guys, because quite honestly, I didn't see a whole lot from him in the preseason. Like, there wasn't a whole lot that impressed me. That's not to say he was bad. I just didn't notice him. And he's a veteran guy. I guess I was just expecting maybe him to stand out a little more, because I thought, well, he's coming to a new team and he can't get too comfortable here, because I don't know. I mean, I figured that he was in line to win a job right out of camp, just based on, who he is and what he's done. That being said, there was a lot of guys fighting for jobs, and I thought, I got to see a little more from this guy, because if he kind of is just going through the motions, like as it sort of looked like he was in preseason, it's not going to be long before somebody's grabbing his job. Now, to his credit, once the regular season started, and, I guess we shouldn't be surprised. It's a story that often plays out when you're talking about veteran NHL players, that they know what they need to do in training camp and in the preseason, just so they're ready to kind of turn it on, for keeps when the season starts. And so he's been a pleasant surprise to me, just because I'm comparing it to what I saw in camp, which wasn't exactly overwhelming. So yeah, he's been really good. And I'll say this, guys, like, I had a concern coming into this season about the Jets, and I think a lot of people did, not just my concern, that they might be a little too slow. Obviously, they lost some significant speed in Nikolai Ehlers. Not that Rasmus Kupari was a regular in the lineup last year, but he's another guy that had speed. Brandon Tanev, certainly plays a fast game, and he joined at the deadline. And when you look at the guys they brought in, Taves, Nyquist, Pearson, Koepke would be a bit of an exception. He can motor. But I thought, what's this team going to look like? They want to play fast, but do they have the players to do that? Mm-hmm. Through 4 games, and the Islander game to me was the real barometer, because I think the Islanders are a very quick team, and that was a really fast, good hockey game. And I thought the Jets actually more than held their own in the speed department or the quickness department. That's not to say that they've got the fastest straight line skaters in the league. Right. They don't, but they're playing fast. And, Scott O'Neill and Kevin Cheveldale spoke about that in the summer, that there is a difference sometimes between just having fast players and playing a quick game. So the fact the Jets have been able to have the pace that they have has surprised me a bit. And, I would put Pearson in that camp, a guy that, quite frankly, I didn't think could move around the ice all that well. That was my kind of the reputation, I guess. But you know what? He's doing just fine out there. And obviously, with some of the injuries and some of the early line shuffles, like he's gotten a bit of a promotion here and a bump up the lineup. And I think it's well deserved.
Well, Mike, speaking of the line shuffling, I mean, you're going to see morning skate in about 10 minutes when they really get going, but you anticipate Nikita Chibrikov will remain a healthy scratch, and you think Parker Ford is going to stay in and continue to bring the energy as he does?
That would be my guess. I think the Jets, if you look at each of these 4 games, I think you can make an argument that they've incrementally been getting a little bit better each game. And I think certainly last game looked a lot more like the Jets want to look. Mm-hmm. Certainly if you look at the very little they gave up, certainly in the first and third periods, what was it, like
5 shots total?
5 shots total in 40 minutes of hockey is pretty good.
It is. So, and like I thought Parker Ford looked to me like a guy that was really excited to get in the lineup and was going to do what he could to show that, hey, coach, I'm going to make it difficult for you to take me out. So I think he's earned certainly another look tonight. I would expect they likely roll the same lineup tonight as they did on Thursday. But yeah, I mean, this is what you want. You want some internal competition. You want guys kind of knocking at the door. You want guys to be a little PO'd that they're not in the lineup, so that when they do get in the lineup, they're going to come in and make a compelling case to stay in the lineup. And, I thought Colin Miller was pretty good the other night when he had to step in for Hayden Fleury. Obviously, Fleury was okay, and they've gone back to him now. But I think the Jets have some real good depth options in terms of who's not playing right now. And then certainly if you go beyond just what's on the NHL roster, certainly some guys on the Moose who will be vying for call-ups as well. And, of course, you also have a bunch of guys that are hurt right now, which at some point, should they all get healthy at the same time, is going to create some roster decisions. And we've already seen some of those tough roster decisions, right? Like David Gustafsson being a cut and put on waivers was a bit of a surprise. But I think it just speaks, again, to what you talked about, Drew, right off the hop, which is the depth they now have. And guys aren't just going to be handed jobs. They're going to have to earn them. And that's creating a pretty good environment around this team.
Mike McIntyre, our guest Saturday morning, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Mike joining us live from Winnipeg. Jets morning skate, the Jets and the Predators a little bit later on this evening. Mike, you look at the back end, and it's sort of funny. Logan Stanley leads all the Jets in defensemen and goals with the one. Him and DeMello tied. Each of them have 2 points so far this year, but a bit of a slow start, in particular for a guy like Neil Pionk. Do the Jets need to see a little bit more, from Neil Pionk, particularly in the absence of Dylan Samberg, to prove that, he himself can be a driver and worthy of that big contract extension he got last year?
Just as we all expected, Logan Stanley would have more points than Josh Morrissey,
right,
and Neil Pionk. Does Logan Stanley just take Josh's spot with Team Canada? Is that how that works now?
That's right. Especially on the smaller ice surface over in Italy, it won't be a disadvantage.
6'7".
I think Neil Pionk misses Dylan Samberg greatly, and you even look at some of the metrics last year when Samberg was out, and I think you could make a case that Neil Pionk, who had a pretty good overall season last year, wasn't quite the same when he was without, Dylan Samberg by his side, and so I think that that's something that's going to be hard to navigate. Can he do a little bit more? Sure, absolutely, but I think the fact is that Dylan Samberg is quietly, maybe not as much anymore. I think we now talk about him a little more than we did, say, a year ago, but he's he's such a good player. He does so many good things. And that includes elevating the game of a Neil Pionk. So whether Pionk's with Hayden Fleury or Logan Stanley, it's not going to look quite the same. And so, I think he's still adjusting early in this season, but it will be interesting to see, obviously what that can look like once Dylan Sandberg does get back. A little bit, I wouldn't call this breaking news, guys, but an interesting development here at Morning Skate. There's a very large man in yellow that has actually joined the entire group, and I think
Dustin Byfuglien.
Yeah, no, not that large, no. But that would be the captain, Adam Lowry, and there was some stick taps.
I could hear something in the background.
Yeah, there was some hooting and some hollering when he came out on the ice. So I believe this is the first time that he's now joined. He's been, what did he call it, Dave? Solitary?
Yeah, solitary.
He's been in solitary confinement, so it looks like he's now got out.
Although, Mike, can you call it solitary if you're skating with Dylan Sandberg? I mean,
that's
is it really
true.
solitary?
That's kind of an insult.
Well, and I was going to say, what about JP Vigier too? He's been skating with him, right?
That's right, and wasn't he skating with Jacob Julian at one point? Or Kieran Walton.
Kieran Walton.
With the Kieran Walton. So yeah, that's true. He hasn't just.
But you know what, Mike? To defend the captain, he did when he said the solitary confinement comment. To us, I think that was in the captain skates or whatever. That was before anybody else was injured.
Correct,
so
and it was just him.
Yeah,
it was him and JP. But yeah, so a good sign that he is out here. It's interesting. What's the date today? October 18th. So we're 2 weeks from today is November 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And
Pittsburgh game.
That was the early timeline, right? End of October, which would be basically 2 weeks from now. The fact he's out here is 2 weeks within the potential window now of a return. I guess we'll see how active he is. Obviously, he's wearing the no contact, but certainly a good sign. And obviously, Dylan Sandberg's recently got back on the ice as well. I guess the big one too will be seeing when Cole Perfetti eventually resumes skating. Is unlike Dylan Sandberg, Cole Perfetti's got the lower body injury that. Certainly the skating is going to be a big tell when he gets back on. But yeah, certainly a lot of happy faces here, at least to see Adam Lowry out with the group this morning.
Mike, another question for you. By the way, I'm not sure how much time you have for more questions.
Good. Yeah, we're
good.
Let
us know if you have to go.
We can go 15 or so more if you guys want. So.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely perfect. We'll take every single second we can get with you, Mike. Wanted to ask you about Johnny Toews because obviously through 4 games, he's only got a point of 1 assist.
Right.
But I think you would agree that, it still looks like he's finding his game. Obviously, he's made some nice defensive plays, winning faceoffs out there on special teams. But what's kind of stood out to you? It's obviously a small sample size. It's only 4 games. But what are you seeing through 4 games with Johnny Toews?
Yeah, he's always around the puck, isn't he, guys? Like it almost seems a little unlucky to me that he's just got the 1 assist because he's been around the puck and he's been around the net a lot. There's been some plays that you think are leading to something and then either the shot ends up wide, sometimes off his stick, sometimes off a line mate's stick. Goalie makes a save or just something happens. But certainly I think like anybody, I was very curious to see what this looked like. Could he keep up? And to me, I would say he's exceeded my expectations. And, I think the points are going to come. The points are going to come if he continues to play the way he is. And in fact, I would expect, like, if this is what the base is a few games into the season, I think the expectation is that when we're talking, and give it another 10, another 20, and it's probably going to look even better. I think he's more than shown that he still has some fuel in the tank, and things like timing and his timing, the hands, like those are going to take a little bit more time to come. But I think we're seeing signs that he's getting closer in that department, and certainly the face-offs, guys. Like I think I looked the other day, isn't he like 5th or 6th right now in the league?
Yep.
In face-off win percentage? He's obviously number 1 on the Jets by a lot. And that's an area that this team has struggled in. Now, people will debate the importance of face-offs. I know there's a lot of folks who don't put a whole lot of stock, and
Coaches do. That's all that matters.
They do. And certainly if you're talking about, a big face-off, whether it's in the offensive zone if you're down late, or defensive zone if you're up and you're trying to defend, like those can be, not every face-off is created equal, of course. The point being, you love to have a guy that when you throw him out into the dot, there's a much better percentage that he's going to win the draw for you, whether it's a big face-off or just a routine one. So, yeah, and I think that just speaks to that he's getting his timing down. The one thing seeing him up close, you see why he had the Captain Serious moniker. This is a guy, he's not just out here to have fun. He is intense. He brings the intensity. And like, I'm just talking some little things like barking at linesmen. It's almost like he's been out of the league a couple of years, and I don't think he likes what's happening when it comes to the way face-offs are done. Like we've all seen it, right, guys? It's like, it seems like face-offs have become more of a task than ever, and so many guys get kicked out now. Like it's almost like Taze is like, what's happened to this league that I loved? So we've seen him chirping at linesmen. And he's intense, and I think that intensity, it's infectious. And the real value of Jonathan Taze wasn't going to be what he brought in October. The Jets are obviously hoping it can come like next spring. That by then you're getting the best version of Jonathan Taze, and you're also, you hope, getting the championship, makeup of that player and what that can bring to your room. So no, early signs have been really good. I don't put any stock in the fact he's just got the one assist. Some people, if they haven't watched any of the games and just looked at that, they might say, "Oh, that's there's not a whole lot there." I would vehemently disagree. I think he's been really good, and I think he's only going to get better.
Well, Mike, we've been peppering Scott Arniel for his goalie plan since training camp, and he gave a little indication, trying to keep it under 60 for Connor Hellebuck. But it's easier said than done, as he told us in the Matt Frost Media Center the other day. He's going to want to play all 82. Were you a little surprised, though, that Eric Comrie got the start on Monday against the Islanders, which obviously was just the third game of the season, especially given kind of this scheduling, allowing them to have some time off in between games. But again, obviously they're anticipating what they hope is going to be a long run. So they look like they're trying to pace him. So are you a little surprised, or do you think they've kind of convinced him, like, listen, this is what we need to do to be optimal in April, May, and June?
No, I was a little surprised because I think the schedule, at least early in the year, would have allowed under, previous years to just ride Connor Hellebuck, and they probably would have done that. This felt almost like they just shoehorned in a start for Eric Comrie, not because Hellebuck needed the rest, but just because they wanted to get him a game. But I do think that's a very good sign, and an even better sign that Eric Comrie was as solid as he was. And, that performance the other day against the Islanders should alleviate, not that I think there were any concerns within the team, but that should, put the notion that maybe he can't handle a little more workload to bed. I think he can, and I think he's going to get the opportunity. And I just look at the upcoming sched, like Connor Hellebuck's in the starters net tonight. I think we all expected he was going to play Saturday night, home ice, Hockey Night in Canada, all that. And he's only played one game in a row. But guys, I wonder, does Eric Comrie start Monday in Calgary? And that wouldn't surprise me. If you're like, if the idea is to get Comrie somewhere around 25 and Hellebuck, in the mid 50s, you're talking about basically playing Eric Comrie every third game or so. So, and that's what happened the first 3-game cycle, right? It went Hellebuck, Comrie. We're going to go Hellebuck. Could we see Eric Comrie again on Saturday? And or on Monday. I wouldn't be surprised. And if we do, maybe that's kind of the rotation that happens here early in the year, that you see like 2 games for Connor, 1 game for Eric, and you just sort of bounce that around. So, yeah, I think there is a goal of trying to reduce his his regular season workload a little bit, with the idea being that he's probably going to play a lot in Italy in February. He's not going to get the same break that most other goalies around the league are going to get. And of course, at the end of the day, you want him available to play anywhere between 16 to 28 games starting around mid-April next year. And there will not be a goalie rotation once that tournament begins.
No, there definitely won't be. Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press, our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Mike, the 3N line, Niederreiter, Nyquist, and the Mesnikov. With the exception,
or as I like to call
Nyquist,
it, Mike, the triple N line.
Yeah, it's the 3N line. We decided that on. Yeah, ignore what Ginsburg has to say as a general rule that you're going to be okay with that. What are you seeing from the three of them since they've been united? I mean, I think Gus Nyquist, it seems like this fits better than Nyquist did up on the second line, at least to start the season.
Yeah, I would agree. And, I think that line, I want to say they were put together, I believe, in the second game against Los Angeles, correct?
It was either Los Angeles or the Islanders. I can't recall which, but yes. I think you're right, though.
My early impressions of that line were not good. They did not have a good game. And so that's why I want to say it was last Saturday that they played together. And, the Jets came away with the win. I think I wrote in our game day warm-up newsletter that was not a good performance from that line. And I expected them to be better because they're three veteran guys, three proud players, and I don't think they would have been happy with that, certainly not being, their level of play. And so they've responded, and they've been a lot better. The last two games, the trio had a really good road trip, and I think that's a very good development for the Jets. If you could get all those guys scoring, and with the idea being like, if you could get Niederreiter, Nyquist, Nemestikov to all be in that 15 to 25 goal range, that would be a huge plus for the Jets when you talk about, trying to get make up for some of that offense that you lost with Ehlers and some of the scoring by committee that they talk about. Like, and Nino Niederreiter is usually pretty solid for somewhere in the 18 to 20 goal range. Vlad Nemestikov, was the second line center last year. Would he only score 10 goals? He had a bit of a down year. Excuse me. So I think, seeing those guys light the lamp early, and I think collectively as a trio, it's a really interesting line that I think can bring out the best in each other. And there's a lot of, veteran savvy. There's a lot, what was the word? Oh, that Brian Burke loved to use. Truculence. There's some truculence to that trio. They're a truculent trio, the 3N line.
Too much alliteration.
Yes.
No, never enough alliteration, Mike.
So, yeah, I think they've been a lot better, and, they're going to get a bit of an extended look here by the sounds of it. Looks like in line rushes today, by my eye, I didn't see any changes. I think as we expected, we're going to see the same lineup tonight. And I'm curious to see what this Nashville team looks like. I was at their practice yesterday here at the rink. I had a chat with a couple of players. And, they've had a pretty long road trip to start the year off. They're kind of on the tour of Canada. So this is the last stop. I don't know if you guys saw, they suffered a bit of a heartbreaker the other day in Montreal. I was surprised that the spirits were as high as they were at their skate yesterday, given what had transpired the previous night, where they gave up the lead with like seconds left in the third, and then they lost with seconds left in overtime. But they're off to a pretty decent start, 2-1-2, just one regulation loss in 5 games. And they always seem to play the Jets tough, right? No matter what. So it should be a good contest. And the Jets have been a force within the Central Division in recent years, a big part of why they've had success. So they're 0-1 this year, guys, in their own division. Of course, that season opening loss to Dallas. So they would love to get their first division victory here tonight.
Well, Mike, just sticking with the Preds, and we know you've got to go in a few minutes, but to me, the the best sign for the Predators. And as you mentioned, they've got points in 4 of 5 games. Like, to me, the Predators look like a team that has a lot to prove. Obviously, last year they were an easy win, and this year it looks like that's not going to be the case. But you look at UC Saros's numbers through 4 games, 1.94 goals against and a .935 save percentage. Like, people forget I don't care what anybody says. To me, UC Saros is still a top 10 goalie in the NHL.
Oh, I agree 100% he is. And yeah, it's interesting. Like, Nashville, you look at their last 2 years, it's been like 2 years ago, they kind of revamped their roster, right? And they had a bunch of no names on their roster, and they were really good and competitive.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they had a work ethic that was second to none in the league.
Right.
They didn't necessarily have the most talented team on paper. They had all these guys they brought up from their farm team, and they were a handful. And then last year, so they go out, they then add all this talent with free agent signings, Stamkos, Marchessault, Shea, and all of a sudden they go the other direction, and they're pretty easy to play against. And they're not the Predators, except when the Jets went to Nashville last year, where they always seem to have a tough time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think the feeling was that was more of an outlier. That's not who this team really is, and they were going to get back to being a playoff contender. And certainly the early returns here, again, with a bit of a tough schedule, a lot of road games to kind of start off, have been pretty good. So we know what UC Saros can look like. And, certainly Jets fans have seen him dialed in at times against the Jets. And yeah, he's off to a great start. I expect he gets the call here tonight to finish the road trip for them. And Jets are going to have their work cut out for them to score a few, but should make for a pretty good game. Certainly a really good goaltending matchup with Hellebuck in the other net.
Well, Mike, as you said, they started off, they're not 0-5-0 like last year. So they're already well ahead of where they were at this time last season.
And honestly, they're a few seconds away from being 3-1-1, right?
Yeah,
I mean, from the other night. So
they're banking points just like the Jets are.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but you talk about achieving goals and stuff, and one guy who we know is locked in to bring this team a Stanley Cup, but also locked in to try and make Team Canada is Mark Scheifele, and he's sure making a very good bid early in this season to get his recognition. We know he was invited to the camp they held out in Calgary this summer alongside Josh Morrissey. But what are you seeing from Mark Scheifele this year that shows it's different than last year, if anything?
Yeah, I mean, he's I saw it just in the very first game, and it wasn't just, the 3 assists he had. The intensity was off the charts. Like, against Dallas, like, he was mixing it up. It looked like he wanted to fight in that first game. Mm-hmm. And, that told me a couple things. It said this is a guy he's ready to go to battle for the team, for himself. He's a bit of a man on a mission, a bit of a possessed player, if you will. And, that was a great sign to see. And obviously the points, the goals have come, the assists have come, the playmaking, the finishing, all of that. And yeah, he looks like a guy who, is playing with a bit of a chip on his shoulder. I suspect there's also a sense of just relief now that Kyle Connor's locked up long-term. What a feeling it must be to be part of one of the best lines in the NHL and know that your 2 line mates, along with yourself, are locked up long-term. That would just create a feeling of comfort. And I think we're seeing that from that whole trio. But yeah, Mark Scheifele's been driving the bus. And, guys, I know some people have said, well, where does he fit in on Team Canada? How do you get him on the roster? Well, first of all, there are a couple extra roster spots for the Olympic team versus the 4 Nations team. They're going to bring a couple extra bodies. And I think the case could be made that Mark Scheifele would deserve to be there even if there weren't any extra players. The fact there are 2 extra roster spots, I don't see how you leave him off. I just think he can do, and now he's added some penalty killing to his resume. Like, he's becoming a more versatile player. He's been the top center on the best defensive team in the league. And I'm not saying that's all on him, but like, he can do a lot of things. And if you're the Team Canada brass, just because maybe there's not a spot for him on your top line or your second line, but I think he can play other roles and be very effective at that level. So, yeah, I think we're seeing the absolute best version of Mark Scheifele. And guys, we talked about Kyle Connor, especially after that hat trick in game 1. Oh, is this the year he breaks 50? Is this the year Mark Scheifele breaks 50, right? Sure. Like, and I think we've seen with these guys, there's almost a friendly competition where they push each other. That's a great thing if you're the Jets. And wouldn't it be something if they both could approach that benchmark? 50 goals, 100 points, that sort of thing. If they can both be in that range, I dare suggest the Jets are going to be sitting pretty as a result.
That would be a good situation for the Jets to be. And Mike McIntyre with the Winnipeg Free Press joining us live from Jets Morning Skate. Mike, we'll let you shift back your focus to what's going on the ice. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your insight, and we'll read all about tonight's contest in the broadsheet of the Winnipeg Free Press and online at winnipegfreepress.com.
Enjoy the game, fellas. Thanks for having me.
Take care, Mike. Thanks very much. There he goes, our good friend Mike McIntyre joining us this morning here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We'll take the opportunity of Mike's departure to pay a few bills. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show rolls on. It's presented by Play Now. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. Don't go anywhere. Much more Jets talk to come on this Saturday morning.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Center. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Center. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
10 minutes before the top of the hour, welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. Still to join us at the bottom of hour number 2, Chris Mason, Nashville Predators analyst, good friend of ours here on Illegal Curve, former member of the Winnipeg Jets, if you want to go way back.
He's actually, Drew,
yes.
If you want to even go further back, We had Chris Mason on the show when he was still a member of the Atlanta Thrashers.
It's true. I remember that.
Yeah.
I don't want to go that far back. It makes me feel too old.
That was wasn't he driving, Ezzy? Wasn't he somewhere in Alberta?
He was it was at the end of the season.
Yeah, he was making his way from Atlanta back home, wasn't he?
Yeah, back to
Red
Alberta.
Deer. Chris Mason's a Red Deer guy. So yeah, he joined us somewhere in Alberta or somewhere in the US. I forget exactly where he was, but that was fun to have him on before, because that was just a few weeks before the official announcement was made that the
I
Jets
was trying to remember what the timing was. Had the announcement happened yet, or
no?
was it just
it hadn't happened yet. It was a few weeks away.
Okay, well, yes, there you go. Good memory on your part, Ezzy. That was many years ago, 15 plus years ago, as you remember, as everybody remembers. In any event, he's set to join us to talk about the Winnipeg Jets' opponent tonight, the Nashville Predators. Divisional matchup at home Saturday night should be a fun one. And it's, again, divisional matchups always have a little bit more importance. I mean, the game against the Islanders, the game against the Flyers, you see those teams twice a year, maybe more if you make it all the way to the end of the season. But you know that the games against the East, by and large, do not have the same juice that the games against the Central Division do. The Jets, again, Mike mentioned it. Mike McIntyre mentioned it in his comments. Big part of the Jets' success over the last couple of years has to do with how they've played in division. So that's why I think from the Jets' perspective, you're not reinventing the wheel. Your game is your game. Your approach is your approach. But you're looking to sort of have a better showing than you did against the Dallas Stars so that you can sort of reaffirm yourself at the top of the Central Division. Make hay in those matchups, those Central Division matchups, which are the majority of your schedule. So that translates into a good placement vis-a-vis playoff positioning.
It's funny you mentioned schedule, Drew, because it's kind of a weird part of the schedule, right? Like the Jets go on the road for those 2 games on the East Coast, come back for the one home game, then obviously go on the road and play Calgary on Monday, and then they have those 2 back-to-back home games against Calgary and Seattle. So it's kind of like a little bit of a homestand, but they're going to Calgary for one game. And I agree with you 100%. I mean,
well, 5 of the next 5 of the next 7 are at home, and the two road games are not long flights. You go to Calgary for that one off on Monday, and then the only other one is next Tuesday against the Wild in Minneapolis. So really, by and large, you're close to home ice, for the next 2 weeks. I mean, even the game, on November the 1st, that's the home game against the Penguins. So again, we've talked about how this is a softer part of the schedule, and there's no doubting that. But it's also a lot of a home schedule that's either at home or very close to home in terms of your opponent. So
right, and I think Drew will see.
Jets.
Yeah, for sure. There's an opportunity to definitely go 4-1, hopefully 5-1 and beyond. But this Predators team, like we just talked about them with Mike, right? Like points in 4 of their first 5 games. I really think that this team, maybe more than any other team in the Central Division, maybe the entire league, guys, has more to prove than this Predators team, because they were the most, let's be honest, they were the most disappointing team in the NHL. A lot of people not only did a lot of people have them making the playoffs, a lot of people had them winning the division, bringing in Stamkos and Marchessault and Brady Shea, right? And, So I don't care what anybody says. There's still a lot of depth on this roster. I mean, you look at the top line of Ryan O'Reilly, Steven Stamkos, and Philip Forsberg. Obviously, it thins out guys once you get down the lineup. But right now, Eric Holla, former New Jersey Devil, former Minnesota Wild, is actually leading the Predators in points. So just to give you an example that the scoring has been spread out throughout the lineup. It's not like, it's been all Marchessault or it's been all, Philip Forsberg or anything like that. So this Predators team, they're not – I don't think they're going to be a pushover like they were last year.
Oh, I think that they, anytime you have a team with that many veterans on it, and the Predators certainly are veteran laden, they're embarrassed. They were embarrassed by their performance last year. I mean, I don't think there's any, two ways about it. They just said, that can't be us, because you're sort of locked into this roster. It wasn't like these guys were, one season contracts and then they could try and turn over the team. They're by and large were locked into these guys, and it's such a disaster last year. And they're such professionals. And, I think people oftentimes underestimate, Dave, the adjustment period. Moving from a new team, moving from a new organization, especially when you have that many changes all at once. It's difficult to integrate all those new bodies. It might take a period of time. Now, it shouldn't have taken as long as it did. It shouldn't have taken an entire season. But
Right.
that's sort of where the Nashville Predators are in that sense, is that, now at least a guy like Marchessault, who was with Vegas for so long, a guy like Stamkos, who was with Tampa for the entirety of his career, Brady Shea, it's the same idea. These guys at least should be more accustomed to what's expected of them, should be more accustomed to working within the organization that is the Predators. And to your point, Ezzy, and we've seen it so far in terms of some of their on-ice results, I would expect them to be a better hockey team than they were the trash fire of last season.
Well, I think that, we're seeing that. As I said, they went 0-5-0, right, last year. They had no points through 5 games. That's a hard thing to overcome. And then when, they started to pick up some wins and you thought, okay, maybe it was just a, sort of getting to know yourself a little bit, but you don't win the Stanley Cup by winning free agency. And everybody was handing the Predators the Stanley Cup because they, quote, won free agency. They got Stamkos. They made all these big moves. And you're like, okay, Barry Trotz, good Dolphin boy. He's getting it done. And again, that's why it's always funny, right? Because all the pundits were saying, well, this is the Nashville Predators top 3 in the Central or not, or
good
not.
Dolphin boy, unproven general manager.
Yeah.
I was also going to say, guys, it feels like just yesterday we were on Trotz watch.
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
God.
Does he still get that free beer offer? I can't remember if that's still.
No, I would imagine
that
they
was
got
from our
rescinded.
friends at Winnipeg Sports Talk and LGB.
It's LBJ, not.
I was going to say.
Sorry, LBJ. Sorry.
Well, they're not our sponsor, so Ezzy's allowed to get the name incorrect. If it was one of our sponsors,
Sorry,
I'd be
Little Brown
upset.
Jug. You're right, Drew.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
I'm aware. I know the acronym. Not LGB. We'll go back to spelling class later.
There's probably
well, it's fine. He was going the French way.
LGB.
Little jug that's brown. That's not a big deal.
Yeah, Joug, little Joug Brown.
No, petit. That's small in French, guys. Come on, I have a French immersion diploma.
You're really
you got something all right.
A lot of use out of it there.
It's funny. I took 13 years of French immersion. Like I graduated. Shout out to Kelvin High School, my alma mater. I can
took
barely,
13 years?
I can barely speak French at this point. I can barely speak English.
Yes,
clearly. We're struggling with the L's and the B's and the J's and the G's and the whole 9 yards. So you got to start small.
Anyways, the point is that yes, this. I'm curious to hear from Chris and his perspective, obviously, as someone who watches the team regularly, to hear what has changed. Because again, you've got, Drew, you talked about it from a few years ago. We saw a lot of guys come up from the Milwaukee Admirals, who were a really good team in the AHL, and they, whether it was like the Luca Evangelistas or whatever, right, Ezzy? Like they had a lot of guys come up and make an impact on that team. Remember that we thought wasn't even going to have a shot at the playoffs. And then all of a sudden they went on that run with all those young guys who were kind of like, well, we didn't realize we weren't supposed to win hockey games. But ultimately, this is a team that is, as Drew has touched on, is got it together. It looks like, obviously that was an ill-fated game against the Montreal Canadiens, of course. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a big game for the Winnipeg Jets. They can't rest on their laurels. They can't just be excited. Okay, well, we beat, we've got 3 games in a row, and you talked about LA. They're going to be in trouble with Anze Kopitar now out week to week with a foot injury, I think it was.
That's right. He blocked the shot, and I think he hurt. I don't know if he broke the foot or he hurt the. Hurt the
well,
foot.
he's out week to week, so
he's got a foot owie of some
yeah,
sort.
So that's not good for the Kings. But ultimately, from a Jets
owie, Drew.
I did.
That's his official medical diagnosis.
I'm not a doctor, but I'll take a look.
Right. So so I think it's just I think it'll be very curious to me to watch how the Jets react. The Barron brothers going head to head again, not the first time, of course, but Justin and Morgan getting a chance to do battle. That should be an interesting thing to watch. And ultimately, you want to see that the Jets can make hay against the Central Division rival, because as Drew, you said, they were so good last year at doing that, at winning those games against the Central. One, the curious thing, I guess the only thing I'm interested in, because we've heard from Mike and I saw on Twitter that the guys were saying that there's no lineup changes for Winnipeg. So the only thing I guess we could really learn this morning from the Matt Frost Media Center is whether there's any update on Adam Lowry. And I suspect we won't really get one, but that to me is kind of the only sort of curious thing that we may learn this morning.
Though, boys.
Here's the update. It's another step in his recovery. that's exactly probably what.
Well, again,
great thing.
Well, the truth is, and again, if you looked at the Illegal Curve Instagram, or if you watched if you read any of the reports as we've been doing, we saw him, really stressing himself with JP Vigier and Dylan Sandberg. And Dylan Sandberg, they were doing this kind of like pulling JP along and he's putting resistance against them as they're pulling. Now, Sandberg wasn't using his left hand. So, and I've been watching, while I was out there watching Moose practice, clearly he's still not using his left hand. So Sandberg is skating. His skating looks good, but, and he, to be honest with you, he fires it one hand better than most guys do with two hands, boys, but he's not using his hand. But Lowry, who of course is dealing with the hip injury or the hip surgery that he had, that was a test, I would imagine, or an exercise that would really stress that. So it's a good sign, I think, in the right direction for him. What's going on? What just?
Sorry, I don't know. That got on there for some reason.
Yeah. Anyways,
you're absolutely right, Dave. I mean, when it's a lower body injury like the one Perfetti suffered, I think the time to ramp up is going to be more difficult than it will be for guys like Sandberg or Lowry in this case. I mean, Lowry's obviously closest to coming back, so we knew that the timeline was always sort of that this would be where the next step happens, right around now. This is, as expected. We've all targeted the sort of November 1st date, give or take, that game against the Pittsburgh Penguins. But Sandberg, at least he can still use his legs. We know that it's, it's the arm injury, it's the shoulder injury, that he suffered in that preseason game. So he can keep his conditioning up. It's for a guy like Perfetti, who's not able to be on the ice because it's that lower body injury, that it's going to be, I think, a bit of a longer process to getting him back to health than it will be a guy like Sandberg, or obviously Lowry seems to be at the head of the class in terms of returning to the Winnipeg Jets lineup. I was looking at the Predators. It's interesting. They've given up on average. They're not giving up much more than 2 goals a game. They got blown out by the Leafs, 7 goals against. Leafs are an offensive fire, power still. They got a lot of that. But the Predators look like they're back to sort of being a stingy, defensively responsible team with very good goaltending. You mentioned UC Saros, both of you, that he's still one of the top goalies in this league. Last year was just an abomination up and down the entire roster, the entire organization for the Predators. Early results, only 5 games in, but they do seem like they're back to being sort of a Nashville Predators team that we're used to seeing.
Well, UC Saros was a Vezina finalist just, 3 or 4 years ago? And it's not like UC Saros is a 39-year-old goaltender or anything like that. Like, this guy's still in the prime of his career. So you're absolutely right, Drew. I mean, look, the Predators do not have the type of team that can play like the Edmonton Oilers and win games 5-4. I think they know that. They have to win games more like 3-2, 4-2, things like that, right?
Sorry, as an aside, before you finish, did you hear what Ray Ferraro had to say about Evan Bouchard's game earlier this week?
No, I did not.
It was the game where the Oilers played the Islanders. I guess it was probably Wednesday or Thursday, one of those 2 nights.
I think he was pretty bad in that game.
He was terrible in that game. Ray Ferraro said it was the worst period of defensive hockey he's seen a defenseman play. 2 periods, the worst 2 periods. Evan Bouchard was so bad in those games early in the season, early in that game for the Oilers against the Islanders. Apparently his first 40 minutes were atrocious beyond words. Ray's not one to mince words, so he's always, which is what makes him a great analyst, but there's nothing sugarcoating about that kind of comment.
Yeah, and then I didn't watch the game, but I just read about how, like our good friends at Edmonton Sports Talk, Dustin Nielsen, Hernan Celeste, all those guys, shout out to those guys. They do a great job in Edmonton. Drew makes regular appearances on their shows, and they were really tearing him apart. It wasn't just a bad game. And like you said, think about how many games Ray Ferraro has watched, both as a player and an analyst. You're talking thousands of hockey games. So obviously that's not a great sign.
Here's the direct quote. So this is courtesy of our buddy Stephen Wino, who writes for the Associated Press, covers a lot of the New York-based teams. On the ESPN Plus broadcast of the game, color analyst Ray Ferraro, a longtime forward in the league with over 1,300 games of experience, from between the benches, called it, quote, about as bad a 2 periods I've seen an NHL player play. That is damning with faint praise, to put it mildly.
Yeah, no, that's not a good. That's not good. But this isn't Oilers lunch.
No,
we're talking about the Jets Predators
sorry.
game tonight, and it should be a good game. And obviously, guys, the Preds over the last few years haven't been necessarily a huge rival for the Jets, but it wasn't too long ago that these were the top teams in the Central. Obviously, the Jets and the Predators have been going in different directions, right, Dave? But I go back to what I said before. Like the Jets are obviously a veteran team, but the Predators are too, with guys like we talked about it. That top line of O'Reilly, Forsberg, and Stamkos, and then obviously you've got a veteran like Jonathan Marchessault, who is only 3 years removed from a Conn Smythe Trophy, right? So this isn't going to be an easy win. The Jets know that. UC Saros we expect to be playing. I think hasn't been confirmed, but maybe we'll confirm it with Chris Mason when he comes on in about 25 minutes or so.
But you look at the Predators team. Sorry, you look at the Predators team, and you say, look, they don't have the same quality of depth of the forward groups that the Winnipeg Jets do. Which
it's not even close, Drew.
No, it's not. I mean, you have some guys. I mean, you got their top line. Forsberg, O'Reilly, Stamkos, long in the tooth. Don't get me wrong, but those are three still high quality NHL players. It's the lower down matchups where, and again, this is going to be the true for almost every Winnipeg Jets game this season, Dave, is that's where the Jets are going to need to make some hay. I mean, you look at a bottom six, you got Cole Smith, Michael McCarron, Ozzy Weissblatt, who's a young player. I think this is his rookie season for the Preds. I mean, this is where the Jets and the men that they have at the bottom of their lineup can really lean on an opponent and can control play and can control minutes in the opponent's zone. And that's where that's the Jets' MO. It's how they win games night in, night out. We saw it against Philadelphia on Thursday night, where they just sort of sucked the life out of the Philadelphia Flyers, particularly in that third period. And it was started with the bottom of the lineup for the Winnipeg Jets, where they just have the Flyers hemmed in. And that's, again, the same thing the Jets have to do, is they have to take advantage of the quality that they have, particularly in their middle six and their bottom six. And that's where they're going to need to take an advantage. And frankly, I would still take the Jets, top line, Scheifele, Connor, Velarde over the Predators top line. So it's, I think, going to be a more competitive game, but the Jets have, the advantage in the matchups, Dave.
Well, they do. And it's crazy to be talking about Jets and their depth, Ezzy, without Adam Lowry and Cole Perfetti in this lineup. But that's why you went out and you did what you did, why you got the guys that you got, that you feel that can help your team stay the course with the injuries to a player. Now, obviously, none of those guys are replacing your top level guys, but ultimately, from a Jets perspective, you're right, Drew. I mean, that is where you're going to try and win around the edges of a hockey game, right? Is be able to kind of push your opponent because you have more depth than they do. And like we've talked about, this Jets team, I mean, first of all, it's not a stressful schedule by any stretch of the imagination, right? They had 2 days before the game against the Flyers. They didn't fly home after the game. They actually traveled. That is something I'd be curious to talk to Scott Arniel about, is if they've changed their philosophy in terms of practice versus rest versus travel, right? Like, it's a lot more straining on the body to leave Philadelphia, even if the game's over by 8:40, you get out of there by 9:30, 10 o'clock, you're on the plane, you're still not home till after midnight, versus go sleep in the hotel, wake up the next day, fly in the middle of the day, you're not practicing, and then you get back on the ice today. So curious to hear from Scott Arniel what sort of the philosophical changes, if any, they've adopted for this year, especially given the fact that it is an Olympic year. But I just think that it is there's definitely a Jets team that needs to play disciplined, because, as you said, the Predators have been effective when given opportunity. But you also have to, and they've got they're getting very good goaltending. So you're not going to be able to take that for granted, right? So that to me is what I'm watching for, to see if the Jets get to build on a good start. Because it's weird, right? Like you mentioned already, 2 road games, home for a game, and then back to 2 road games. So, I'm curious to see how they start tonight's game, but they can't start slow. And that's kind of been a little bit of a bugaboo so far, is that they have been, we saw Eric Comrie was very good when the Jets weren't great, as he against the Islanders, and even the Flyers had some chances. So, even though they only took 3 shots in total in that first period. So definitely want to see how they're going to start and see how they get amped up to play a Central Division rival and try and get back to their Central Division dominance.
Well, and you talk about the PK and the power play. The Predators PK also very good, 93.3%, just behind the Jets PK at 94.
And Drew, it's definitely going to stay at 93% for the rest of the season.
Whatever happens in the first 4 games of the season, absolutely
They're
extrapolate.
they're first in the NHL right now, right? On the PK?
They are 94.4.
Nick Ehlers, no points this year for him.
That's exactly. I mean, again, whatever is baked in the first 4 games of the season, it manifests itself for the remainder of the 78 games. You're absolutely right, Ezzy, along those lines. The Predators' power play, though, conversely, it's struggling. It's one of the worst in the leagues right now, 28th, only at a 10.5% success rate. The Jets, and we know how they rely on that power play for their success, 25%, 7th so far in the league. Again, very, very small sample sizes. I feel like, one of the CNN election reporters, every time I have to remind people about the small sample sizes and things of that nature. But, if you're looking at early season advantages for the Winnipeg Jets, that might be one over the Nashville Predators.
No, absolutely. And the power play, hasn't been fantastic through 4 games. I mean, and we expected there to be a little bit of a drop off from last year to start the season when they were over 40% on the power play. It seemed like for the majority, certainly the first half of the season, right, guys? But I think, for me, even though the Jets have been getting a lot of depth scoring, we talked about it, 14 different players with a point. I still want to see a little bit more out of that second line. And yes, I realize that, this second line is a bit of a mishmash right now with Cole Perfetti, out of the lineup. But, at the end of the day, they do need offense out of Johnny Taves. I realize it's only 4 games, but, they're going to need him to start producing because it's going to be against some of the stiffer competition when you're going to need that second line producing. It's not so much against, the teams like the Islanders and the Flyers.
Well, right now, Al Iafallo is the offensive driver of that second line, is he not? I mean, you got Alex Iafallo, you have Johnny Taves.
I don't think there is an offensive driver of that line. That's kind of
the problem as well.
The issue. But I like Iafallo on that line. I think even when the Jets are, at full strength, I have time for a Taves, Perfetti, Iafallo line. I realize that, Nyquist is an option there too. And, they've tried Nikita Chibrikov. I just, and I'll defer to Dave because obviously he's watched more of Chibrikov, but, he just, even though he was impressive in the preseason, he just looks like a guy that, right now there's better options. Let's put it that way for the Jets in the lineup, like Parker Ford, for example, on the 4th line. I just think right now, I'm not saying Nikita Chibrikov doesn't have a bright future because I think Chibrikov does have a bright NHL future as kind of a bottom 6 forward. But I think at the end of the day, whether that's Taves, whether that's Iafallo, they need more production from that second line. And, I think it'll come together. It's still only 4 games and, we don't want to get too excited here, but I think, Dave, especially when you get into some of the tougher games, right? Like at the end of the month, you've got Minnesota coming up, for example, and even Calgary's not an easy team to play against. Seattle, even though I wouldn't pick them to be a playoff team,
they're undefeated to start the year, 2-0-2. The Kraken are.
Well, I'm just saying, right? Like, that's when, we've said this time and time again, even though the Jets have one of the best top lines in the league, they can't do it every single night. They're going to have an off night every 1 out of every 5 games. They're going to have maybe not a great night. And that's when you need your second line to pick it up. But luckily the Jets have got contributions from, I'm going to still call it the triple N line just to piss you off, Drew.
Thank you.
I'm just kidding. The 3N line, we're going to call it. But the 3N line was.
I even have time for the N cubed line if you really want to go, a math level. I have time for that.
Okay.
But not the triple N line. That's not going to do it for me. But either 3N
I don't want to be that guy. But I mean, with all due respect to Drew and his desire to be the namer, that's more of an Ezra Ginsburg of GST fame.
Yeah. What have you done for me lately? What have you done for me lately? That was 15 years ago.
Yeah, well, that's
true. I only drop a line every 15 years, Drew.
Yeah, I mean, the point is that as he comes up with gems and doesn't feel the need to name every Tom, Dick, and Harry line.
And let's be honest, the GST line, and we'll give a shout out to Jay Richardson of Power 97 as well, because he was, we came up with that name at the same time, but that name was so classic. I mean, like it was like microphone drop. I don't need to produce anymore. The GST was that authentic. Iconic.
The best thing about the GST line though is that as he came up with it on Twitter, Jay Richardson, you guys were going back and forth. And then the funniest part was like me, like a little agent running around me, like telling Dennis Bayak. I was like, Dennis, we're calling the GST line. Dennis like, oh. And then Dennis on the TSN broadcast, as per the illegal curve, guys, the GST line. And then I got Eddie Tate to write about it in the Winnipeg Free Press. And that, folks, the rest was history.
Thanks, by the way. You just made me really miss Dennis.
That's what I try and do.
We should have Dennis on the show again soon, boys.
We can arrange that. But as Tony Soprano famously once said, remember when is the lowest form of conversation. When we come back, more on the Jets and the Predators. Chris Mason set to join us at the bottom of the hour.
Take it easy, Paulie Walnuts, okay?
It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg on a Saturday morning.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Saturday morning program, of course, brought to you by our title sponsor. That is our friends at Play Now. We thank Play Now for their continued support of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. And remind you that when you sign up for Play Now, you get to choose your welcome bonus up to $250. Don't bet on illegal sites. Keep your money in Manitoba. Bet with Play Now instead. Conditions apply, 18 plus. Enjoy responsibly. So there you go, good friends at Play Now. They'll have some good bets available, some bet boosts and things of that nature available with regard to the Winnipeg Jets and the Nashville Predators, taking place a little bit later on tonight. The defense for the Jets, I mean, they've been, I would say holding their own would be sort of how I would describe it. I mean, that first game against the Dallas Stars, not pretty, but they've, bounced back ever since then. What have they given up? An average of 2 goals a game, which is right where you sort of expect the Winnipeg Jets to be. They gave up the 2 against the Kings, the 2 against the Islanders, the 2 against the Flyers, one of which was a late goal that was basically garbage time at that point. So the defense, and not specifically the 6 defensemen, but the defense as a whole seems to be sort of, again, finding their groove. Much like Stella, they got their groove back, at least after the opening hiccup against the Los Angeles Kings. Dave is cringing at my reference there, I think.
Yeah, nice little reference there, Drew. Was it Angela Bassett who played
Sounds
Stella?
Right. Let's go to the Google box for more of your typical nonsense here. Who was Stella when she got her groove back?
I'm going to say Angela Bassett.
You can keep talking about the Jets, and I'll give you the answer.
Chlorophyll, more like borophyll.
Yeah, no, I think, the defense right now, obviously missing Sandberg. I think, did I get it right?
You got it right, Big
Nice,
Daddy.
nice. I'm not bad with my movie trivia. I'm not so good with the music trivia, but the movie trivia, I'm pretty good. I've watched a lot of movies
French,
in my lifetime.
apparently, based on our previous conversation.
Yeah, French, English, languages, not so much. But I think that, Logan Stanley has impressed me, guys. Let's be honest here. I mean, like when a lot of Jets fans saw the second pairing of Logan Stanley, Neil Pionk, you get a bit nervous. And I think that the long term, that's obviously not the D pair you want. Another guy to me that's been a lot better the last few games as opposed to the first few games is Hayden Fleury. I thought Hayden Fleury really struggled against Dallas. He was out there for a few goals, and I think he's been pretty solid there on the third pair. So I think, that's been obviously a nice development, but it's a situation where, the Jets have to hold the fort down without Sandberg. I mean, Sandberg's still going to be out of the lineup for what, I guess 3 or 4 more weeks. Like he's not coming back, this week or next week. That's for sure. Right, guys? And as Dave mentioned, Dave provided a little bit of an injury report on Sandberg earlier, right? So we obviously hope that he's back sooner rather than later, Dave, but the original timeline was 6 to 8 weeks, and it's been, I believe, 3 weeks now at this point. So you're talking about 3 or 4 more weeks without Dylan Sandberg. So I think Stanley's been impressive, and they got to keep it going. Like this Nashville Predators team can score goals. Obviously, they're not the Edmonton Oilers. They're not a top team in the league, but you've got to be on your best. And I think that when you're talking about the Jets defense, like you want to see them moving the puck quickly, not turning the puck over, not being out of position, all those things, keeping a good gap. You heard Kevin Sawyer, for hockey nerds talking about, keeping a good gap, staying on the right side of the puck, everything like that.
Yeah.
For this group, you got to keep it simple because it's not, look, Dave talked about it. Logan Stanley's the only player on the team that is Jet defenseman that scored a goal so far. Obviously, we expect Morrissey and Pionk to eventually find the back of the net. But I think for this Jets group, you want to see more of what you saw against Philadelphia, just moving the puck efficiently, not giving up a lot of odd man rushes, like I said, and just playing a good, responsible brand of hockey, Dave.
Well, and to Ezzy's point, Dave, I don't care who you're playing against, but in 40 minutes of the game, you gave up a grand total of 5 shots.
Yeah.
That's suffocating. That's an impressive performance by everybody on the ice. And I mean, that's what the Jets want. They want everything. Again, they haven't reinvented the wheel between last year and this year. This is a team that's given up the fewest goals against for the last 2 seasons in the NHL. It's keep everything to the outside, keep the high danger stuff to a minimum. There's going to be breakdowns. There inevitably are. You hope that your goalie, Connor Hellebuck, cleans up those breakdowns. But 5 shots in 40 minutes against is, that's, I don't care who you are. That's damn impressive.
Look, at the end of the day, the Jets have to continue to do what they can to put up points and bank points. And they're not always going to be pretty games. They're not always going to be pretty wins, but you don't really care. The bottom line right now is you've won 3 out of 4 without 3 key pieces to this lineup. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, and the fact of the matter is you can say every team is dealing with some form of injury, fair. But the reality is, as I said, I think I keep going back to it because I still think it's, to me, is the most shocking thing is the fact that the Jets PK has been as effective as it has. You could say it's a function of the teams they've played. That could be, that's fair. Maybe it'll get a boost if they take some penalties today against, as you said, Drew, a Nashville team that doesn't have a lot of power on the power play right now. Although I'm sure Dylan Sandberg is happy not to be blocking any more Steven Stamkos shots in tonight's game. But ultimately, from a Jets perspective, yeah, I mean, look, is this the decor you want to be winning games with? Well, no, obviously, again, guys are playing ahead of where they're supposed to be playing. There's no other way of doing it. But what are you going to do? You're going to sit there and cry about it and say, well, the numbers aren't great for these guys. Okay, that's fine, but you're still winning the games. You're winning the games because you have an all-world best goaltender in the NHL who's going to be able to sort of offset the limitations. And so right now you're dealing with the limiting factor being your second best defenseman in Dylan Sandberg is not in the lineup. or shutdown defenseman, whatever you want to call him, because he's, maybe he's not the best, second best offensively.
No, you're good, Dave. He's the second best defenseman, no doubt. I'm confident in saying that. Obviously, Sandberg's not going to score 50 points, but
right. That's why
he's the second best defenseman on the team.
That's why I was qualifying it a little, right? But the fact of the matter is that if you're able to kind of tread water, and you're more than treading water, winning 3 out of 4, and if you can continue that trend, and the schedule would suggest that you're in line to do so, then you're going to look at the numbers for your D group overall, and you're going to be like, and again, don't get me wrong, I would be of the opinion to throw Colin Miller in the lineup more than they do. Mm-hmm. I don't understand I would give Shen and Miller kind of a platoon opportunity there, because Shen's an older player. You don't need him to be
he's exposed against speed teams. Any
for
team
sure
that they play against that has got some speed, you can see where Luke Shen is going to struggle. And probably Logan Stanley as well for that matter. But they struggle against speed teams because they don't have the quickness. They don't have the foot, the ability to transition very well.
We see Miller. I don't know about tonight against the Predators. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Miller, in these games coming up against the Flames and the Kraken, Dave. I really wouldn't.
Well, yeah, and again, look, what Josh Morrissey's doing, again, he's not putting the puck in the back of the net. He's not contributing in that regard right now, but ultimately, he's still doing a lot of really good things, and his numbers bear that out. So I look at it as an opportunity for the Jets to continue to maintain where they are. And look, you got to remember, this is a Central Division. I mean, if you look at the standings, right, the Jets are currently, I think they're in third, right? Or sorry, they're second. So Colorado has 9 points, Jets have 6, Dallas has 6. And then, but look at the 2 wildcard teams. Utah and Nashville both have 6. Chicago Blackhawks, they also have 6. And the Blues and the Wild both rounded out with 4. Now, again, it's 4 games in or 5 games in for some teams. Let's chill with, as he would say, let's chill with looking at the standings. But I'm just saying that early, those teams are also banking points. So the Jets, given the limitations I thought they were going to have, I think, more than exceeded the expectations. And if they continue to do this, all we said was, you need to do this for the first month. If you can do this and you get Lowry back, and then you're not that far away from having Sandberg back, and we don't know exactly when Perfetti's back. But if you're able to do this, and you're able to get these guys, and you're able to kind of keep pace with everyone, because remember, boys, we talked about it. You don't need to win the division. You don't need to win the President's Trophy. You need to do what the Oilers and the Panthers did last year, which is to ensure that you're in a playoff spot. Right. But you don't need to kill yourself to ensure that you're a 700 winning hockey team. So if the Jets can do that, especially, like I said, with the guys they're missing right now, I think they're in a good place.
I was going to say, in this Central Division, you just want to get in. Like, we talked about it. Like, I'm going to be shocked if 5 teams don't make it from the Central Division this year, because obviously Utah's better. I don't know if you guys saw JJ Peterka's goal the other night, but like, Utah is improved from last year. They're 1 year older with all their great young players. Mm-hmm. Nashville's better. Obviously, Nashville, we're not expecting to be a playoff team, but this is a really tough division. So just to Dave's point, you don't necessarily need to win the division. You just got to get into the playoffs.
Well, it gets, it can get late early. I mean, you can't, that's what we find out, is that it's hard to catch up. That it's not a position the Jets have been in recent years, but it gets real late early. I mean, in Calgary, they're 1-4, and they got a -9 goals against.
Yeah, they do not look good in Calgary, which if you're the Jets, by the way, and you're playing them twice in the next week, that's an opportunity.
Of course, that's an opportunity to just put them further into the doldrums. I mean, again, it's way too early to be scoreboard watching and talking about standings and things of that nature. But if you're a team that's struggling badly, it's not, in fact, too early for that, because it is that difficult.
It's very tough. It's one thing to be 1-4, but to be 3-6 or to be, 3-8 or something like that, that's really tough to come back from, guys, right? Because now you're having to put together a 4 or 5 game winning streak just to get back to 500, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Drew. The teams that are struggling, like Calgary, they're going to have to string together some wins. And that's why those games against the Jets should be so interesting, because the Flames should be a very desperate hockey team.
No question about it. That'll be Monday, and then I think is it Thursday next week? Or is it Kraken Flames? Yeah, sorry, Monday and then Friday. The Jets play the Flames twice next week, and then they also have Seattle on Thursday night. That rare home back-to-back, which doesn't happen all the time, but no travel involved, at least, between Thursday's game and Friday's game. But tonight's game is against the Nashville Predators, and when we come back, Chris Mason, Nashville Predators analyst, is set to join us to talk about the Jets' opponent. It's bottom of hour number 2. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, Saturday morning. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. We're live with you here on our YouTube channel.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now, you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in 2 unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Commercial free from here till the conclusion of the program. It is a Saturday morning edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Later on tonight, a Saturday night edition of the Illegal Curve post-game show. Yours truly, I will be there. The man in the bottom middle, Ezzy Ginsburg, he will be there as well. Photographer, videographer, Colby Spence, he'll be there. We'll bring you the latest on tonight's Jets-Preds game. Talk about it all. Bring you the coach's comments from the Matt Frost Media Center. Don't miss us. We will be going live right around that 8:40, 8:50 mark, right around there tonight after the Jets and the Nashville Predators talk about everything that occurs in tonight's contest. Chris Mason set to join us momentarily. The Jets looking to extend their winning streak to 4 games not to start the season, but after their opening game loss against the Dallas Stars, the Jets looking to keep the ball rolling on home ice tonight against the Nashville Predators. An attempt for the Winnipeg Jets to, again, reestablish themselves, just continue to bank those points. That's what we've talked about for many a year here on the program, is that these games, ultimately, you're not going to win or lose a Stanley Cup in October, but you can absolutely put yourself in a better position for the remainder of the year if you take advantage of the opportunities in front of you, and that is another one that's facing the Winnipeg Jets tonight and really all week long and the rest of the month as they face off against a bit of a lighter schedule. And it really doesn't sort of ramp up. I mean, I don't know if you guys have looked ahead to November, right after that game against the Pittsburgh Penguins on home ice. They head out on the road for 6 games that start at 9 p.m. or later. That is going to be, at least the only saving grace is that none of those are back-to-backs, but those are going to be 2 straight weeks of some late nights for the 3 of us as the Jets head out on that lengthy 6-game road trip, starting in LA and then concluding in Calgary almost 10 days later.
Yeah, and I think we've got Chris coming on right now, so maybe we'll just let Chris get set up there. But yeah, I mean, even though the Predators, this is a game that the Jets are obviously the better team. We talked about it. Preds have got 4 points in 4 or 5 games, and they're a much improved team. And I think we'll touch on this with Chris. That
this
is a team that has a lot to prove.
Yeah, Chris Mason, Nashville Predators television analyst. Chris, welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Thanks for joining us this morning. How are you?
Hey, good. Thanks, guys. I just sorry about a couple minutes late there, but
You're all
thanks for
good.
having me on.
We appreciate it. We appreciate your time. We were talking about the Preds, so far this year, a much improved Predators team from what we saw last year. I mean, is it a function of the guys, especially the new guys that they brought into the lineup last year, are now a year more in Nashville, a year more comfortable in their surroundings in Nashville?
Yeah, I think, even if you go back to 2 years ago when the Preds had that U2 concert canceled, and then they went on that big run, ended up making the playoffs. They did it with grit, and they do it the right way. They're not the fastest team in the league, but they're able to get on the forecheck, get those gritty, net front goals. And then you go to last summer and you sign Stamkos, Brady Shea, Jonathan Marchessault. So I think there was a sentiment that, they were kind of believing all the hype and didn't necessarily have to play with that same identity. And then I've never seen anything like it. They got off to that bad start, and it just became a snowball they couldn't stop. I think they thought it was going to be easy to score goals, but as we all know in this league, you got to play to your identity, and it was tough. But they're getting back to that way of playing.
As he's muted.
Ezzy, you're muted. Unmute your mic.
Oh, sorry, Chris. I get that excited, Chris, to have you back on the show. It's been so while that I don't unmute myself. But how good of a sign is it the way UC Saros is playing? His numbers are pretty incredible. Just a small sample size, but 1.95 goals against, 935 save percentage. It's almost like people forgot that he's still a top 10 goalie in the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously been a huge story. I think last year, Andrew Burnett wanted the team to play a certain way, really aggressive in the defensive zone, trying to get stops, right off the hop, a little more, untraditional. I think they went back to more of a zone defense where they're just more concerned about letting Saros at least see the shots, having predictable, scoring chances against, whether they're willing to give up more zone time as long as they're protecting that net front, trying to clear the porch, as they like to call it, but getting guys out of the shooting lanes and allowing him to see it. And it just becomes, you get to see how really good he is, in a system like that. So that's going to give him the best chance, I think, to be competitive. And if they want to try to get back to the playoffs, they're going to have to continue to play like that and get better at doing so. But so far, it's been night and day in terms of the defensive structure with the Predators.
Chris, just in terms of Steven Stamkos getting comfortable, I mean, obviously when you're with one organization for as long as he was, to join a new team isn't insignificant. How much more comfortable do you think he is in a Predators jersey now than he was last year?
Yeah, I think you can, all three of the guys that they got last year with Brady Shea, Marchessault, and Stamkos, I think a lot of times, people, including the players themselves, underestimate the difficulties of transitioning to a new team. I mean, especially Stamkos, 16 years in one team. He grew up there. He was 18 years old when he started in Tampa Bay, won championships, and really solidified, his roots in the community and with that organization. With it's almost automatic when you're going out there with Braden Point and Kucherov and on the power. You don't have to think. You just go out there and do it. And then you have to retrain yourself. And on top of that, you're moving your family. Obviously, I think all three of those guys, Stamkos, he never wanted to leave Tampa Bay. So that's kind of in the back of your mind. As much as you say that, you're excited and you're glad to be in a new situation, still in the back of your mind, you miss Tampa Bay. But, time heals that. And I think that's a realization that it just, you're not going back. You're not going back to Tampa Bay, and this is the situation. You get to know the guys, you get comfortable, but that has a huge impact on a player's mindset and ultimately their production as well.
Chris Mason, our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Chris, of course, is a Nashville Predators TV analyst. Chris, when a coach goes through the struggles that Andrew Brunette did last year, it's sort of, not that the fault solely falls on him, but oftentimes that results in a coach losing their job. The season the Predators had last year. The Predators organization decides not to do what often is the easy move with dismissing a coach. They bring him back again this year. What did that sort of maintaining that stability mean for the Predators, mean for Brunette, mean for the coaching staff, as they start?
Yeah, that's a great point, because I think when you set out goals as an organization and things don't necessarily go the way that you want in that year, it's easy to say, all right, the coach is gone. It's tough to trade players and contracts, as we all know. There's a process behind that. But I think it really benefited that Barry Trotz, the GM now, it was a coach for many, many years. And he's been through that. He's been given second opportunities on a down season because they believe in him in the long term. And Andrew Brunette's a young coach in this league. He's still finding his ways, trying to, figure out what the best plan is. They've got a lot of younger players coming up as well. They've got, a good leadership group in terms of mentoring these young players. A lot of guys that have won Stanley Cup, Steven Stamkos, Ryan O'Reilly, the core guys, Forsberg and Yossi. So I think, that takes a lot of courage, because you have a lot of the fan base saying, we got to get rid of the coach and this and that. As you guys know, you go into a slump in a season like that, everybody wants the coach's head. But the fact that they're able to take a step back and give him an opportunity, I know for a fact Andrew Brunette and the coaching staff there in the offices right after the season, they said, okay, look, we've got to change a lot of things. We have to coach the roster that we have, not necessarily the way I like our teams to play hockey, because it just wasn't successful. And I think you're seeing that work that they put in and got the buy-in from the guys. So it was, a big move of faith, I think, from Barry Trotz, having been in that situation and given the same grace. So I like the fact that he was able to do that. And you're seeing, Andrew Brunette kind of right the ship now.
Chris, Brady Martin was the Predators' 5th overall pick at the 2025 NHL draft. I know he's been scratched a couple times. I'm not sure if we know if he's playing today, but in the 2 games he's played, how's he looked to you? And is he a guy that you expect to go back to junior, or is there a chance that he could stay with the Preds as an 18-year-old?
I think both options are still on the table. I think game 1, he looked a little nervous as a home opener, and all the excitement. His family was there, and he's just a good kid. I mean, he's an Ontario farm boy, had a smile on his face the whole time. But I think you saw he had such a great preseason. But as we all know, it's a different ballgame when they start playing for points and the league comes around and the NHL guys are playing for keeps. I think there's a couple moments in there where it's like a couple wow moments. Like, okay, this is different than what I'm used to seeing. Game 2 he played, I thought he settled in a lot more. He was playing with O'Reilly and Forsberg, so he's obviously getting top matchups from the other league. And for a young centerman in the National Hockey League, it's extremely tough. I mean, I think it's the center position's an old man's game. You got Connor Bedard, who's in the league 2 years in the league. Is each year he's got a 38% win percentage in faceoffs. So it takes time to I guess perfect that craft. So he's got a long way to go in terms of that. And I think they wanted to protect him here a little bit on this trip. Obviously, a lot of tough buildings. Ottawa home opener, Montreal, and Toronto. I don't know if he's playing. I'll find out. We talked to Andrew Brunette here in about 20 minutes or so. So we'll find out if he's playing. But he'll determine that, I think, with this play. If he settles in and he could be a value to this team, and play in a top 6 role. I mean, you don't want an 18-year-old playing on the 4th line or the 3rd line. But he's still got 7 more games that he can play before the Predators have to make that decision. But he's just soaking it all up. I know he spent a couple periods up in the press box with Barry Trotz, kind of, having some conversations, kind of learning the ins and outs. And he's getting a lot of valuable experience just being around the guys and seeing how it works in the NHL. But, it's going to be a big decision they'll have to make here after he plays 7 more games, if he gets to that.
Chris, you mentioned that the team from a couple of years back, and a lot of those guys were made up by the Milwaukee Admirals, and we know how good that Milwaukee Admirals organization has run. Every year it seems like they're going to at least the second or third round. At least the last 4 years, I know that they've been, they've been killing the Manitoba Moose. But from your perspective, how important has that been for this organization to have those guys that you see with Luca Evangelista and a number of other guys who are having an impact because of their growth in the Milwaukee organization?
Yeah, it's been huge, and that's a big topic, because as the core guys here start to age a little bit, you're going to have players to replace them to become the new core. And I think Nashville's always done a really good job of not rushing their prospects. Scott Nichols, the GM in Milwaukee, he makes it a point of emphasis to get a lot of good veterans down there. A similar situation as Nashville, where they mentor these young guys, so it's not just guys going having fun in the minors and not really getting mentored to the extent that they are. And when they come up, I feel that these guys are a lot more ready to play NHL games because of the experience they have down there. They've got a lot of first round prospects. They haven't really picked high for many years because they've been so as the same as with the Jets. So it's hard to get those top guys. Mm-hmm. But they're just looking for one of these guys or a couple of them to pop. So I think Milwaukee does a great job, and I think that bodes well once you start aging out of your core guys here to kind of slide those guys in and take over the core group of this team.
Chris, Roman Josi, Brady Shea, they're going to get the headlines on the Predators' back end. Nick Hague out of the lineup. He's on IR. Beyond Shea and Josi, what's really stood out to you regarding a Predators defense that probably doesn't have the most household names, for people outside of Nashville, let's say?
Yeah, I think obviously Nick Hague's a big one. We talked about the defense and the commitment to that this season, but Nick Perbix, who's come over from Tampa Bay, he's been phenomenal with Brady Shea. He's much like Brett Pesce, I think, when Brady Shea had his best years in Carolina. Very solid defensively. And, they tried to put Brady Shea with Josi last year. Both guys are kind of offensively minded. And at times you could just see they're out of sorts. And now it looks like Shea's got the partner that, kind of unlocks his ability to get up on the rush and use his full skill set without having to worry about the defensive side of things. So I think they've been really good. Spencer Stastny and Justin Barron, Morgan Barron's brother, the third pair. And I guess if I look at the one silver lining of last season when the Preds, they were out by January, they had the luxury just to put Barron out in every situation. He came over from Montreal. He was not great in the defensive zone. He was a liability out there. But they just kept putting him out at the end of the year. Last minute of games, you're on the penalty kill. Every situation you can imagine, and it has benefited him greatly. He looks like a different player. I would say he's strong in that department now, and he's with Spencer Stastny, who has played the majority of his career in Milwaukee, but had stretches here with Nashville. He's an elite skater. He's got a pretty well-documented story about anxiety and depression and things that he's battled over the last couple of years, but he's in a really good place. And Andrew Burnett, again, just telling him to go use your skating. You've got this elite skating ability, and you're starting to see the confidence in that group. So it's looked really good so far.
Chris, is there an easier player to cheer for than Ozzy Weisblatt? Obviously, 23-year-old from Calgary, just a unspeakable tragedy that happened with his brother Orca, who obviously has a connection to Manitoba. He played in the Manitoba Junior Hockey League back in the day with the Portage Terriers. Obviously, the sky's the limit for him, but is he just not a guy that you're just rooting for every single day just based on what he's faced in his life recently?
It's such the whole family was such a feel-good story with the sacrifice that their mom, I'm sure everybody in Canada knows, was deaf and raising all these children, doing whatever it takes to give them an opportunity to play hockey. And, we had the honor of being there in his first game last year in Vancouver. And they had the whole family, and it's quite an emotional night to see him go, and he gave the puck to his mom in the warm-up. And, we got to talk to her brother on the broadcast. And, and then you go into this season and obviously the tragedy before camp. But it's tough. You're carrying a lot of weight there for him, but he's just that player that he's relentless. He's not a big guy. He'll go after anyone. He's just a little ball of, he's the Energizer Bunny. He just goes around. He'll run into anybody. He'll get into anybody's face. And those guys are very easy to cheer for, right? And you talk to him off the ice, and he's, one of the most humble kids you could ever talk to. You'd never guess that he's got that personality and that bulldog in him when he gets on the ice. But he's done very well. And just the first couple of games, and since he's been in the lineup, he's really, complemented that fourth line with that energy and that he brings. And he's definitely a player you cheer for sure.
Chris, before you came on, we were talking about the first time you ever came on our show when you were driving back to Alberta from Atlanta. And, it's hard to believe already 15 seasons here. The Jets are back in Manitoba.
Chris, we feel really old considering that was 14, 15 years ago.
But, the chat was very excited that you're coming on. They were talking about your goalie gear. Just maybe share, do you have any good, fond memories of your time here in Winnipeg and just something that stands out to you?
Well, now that I'm done and you reminded me how old we all are, but, a lot of people I meet now, they always ask, what's your favorite year? What's your favorite memories? And I have a lot. And one of the ones I always bring up is that first year in Winnipeg. I remember I was so excited in the summer. I always wanted to play in Canada. I just wanted to experience, because to me, Canada is hockey. I grew up watching the Winnipeg Jets, and I got to the city, and I remember when the guys were starting to filter in. I had some of my gear I was taking home to work in my gloves, my goalie gloves and everything. And I saw, these kids playing street hockey. You don't see that necessarily down south, right? So I pulled over and asked them if I could play, and I got to play a game with the kids on the street. It just reminded me when I was a kid growing up in Canada. That's what I did every day, every chance we could. And just the passion that I just felt this city had. And I have that passion for hockey. And the first game, it was an exhibition game. I remember Buff just running some guy out. It just was nuts. I'd never experienced anything like it. And it was awesome. I remember we had an okay season. We obviously didn't make the playoffs, but it felt like every game was a playoff game. And it felt like, we owed the fans, in this city to give everything we had every night. And, they've obviously done a heck of a job here with the way they've built this team, and it's good to see because that was a phenomenal year. It was so much fun. I'll never forget it.
Chris Mason, Nashville Predators TV analyst. He'll be on the call tonight as the Jets and the Preds do battle in downtown Winnipeg. Chris, thanks for joining us. Give our best to Willie as well. Have a great call tonight, and we'll do it again real soon.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Great seeing you 15 years later.
Thanks, Chris.
Be well, Chris.
Right.
Thanks very much.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
There he goes. Chris Mason, good friend of the show. Great to catch up with him.
Was that, by the way, was that Aaron Bogosian? Wasn't that Zach Bogosian's brother that Byfuglien, wasn't he one of the guys that Byfuglien took out?
That was the preseason game against the Predators, right? That probably
Columbus.
The Blue Jackets, yeah.
Columbus, yeah. And I remember people were talking about what games, in the first year, everybody was doing their tickets,
ticket draft.
Ticket drafts. And a buddy asked me, what game should I pick? And I said, there is no question. They said the home opener. I said, absolutely not. That first exhibition game. I go, you pick that first exhibition game because that building will never be as loud.
The building was shaking.
It was
Dave.
insane.
We were there. We were also there for the whole. I remember the home opener. As we go down memory lane here, the home opener. I remember there was so much national media in the press box. I don't know if you guys remember this, but Remus and I had to just stand in the Ticketmaster lounge. I think it was the Budweiser lounge at that point.
Yeah.
So I remember there was that
mural, that panoramic shot.
Yeah, that panoramic shot that they used to have. I don't know if they still have that at Canada Life Center.
They changed all their photos. Actually, they updated everything. So.
Yeah. Well, they had to add our pictures on the wall, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what they have to add.
There's the three of us talking.
I was going to ask Chris if Willie Donick, who does the games with Chris Mason, know that he was a former draft pick of the Blue Jays.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Former 25th round draft pick of the Blue Jays. Played college ball at Vanderbilt, which has a great baseball program. Vandy, you've spent some time on the Vandy campus. The two of you yokels.
Dave and I went to Dunkin' Donuts and got some day-old donuts.
Yeah.
They were delicious, by the way.
And then
we also went to the I think the Parthenon, which is in Nashville. Randomly,
yes, there is a Nashville. There is a
Parthenon part two, I should say.
I tell everybody
known of the two.
I tell anybody who's never been to Nashville, go to Nashville. Nashville is a fun city, and whether or not you like country music or not, there's music for everybody. Just walking the strip there, we went there for obviously our boy Richie's bachelor party back in 2019.
Yeah.
And there's direct flights from Winnipeg to Nashville. So if you're thinking about it, go. It's an amazing city. It really is.
Yeah, this portion of the show brought to you by Tourism Nashville. Thanks to Tourism Nashville for jumping on board as an official.
If they want to give us some money and fly us to Nashville, I'm down.
Ezzy, you just give away the promo. You give away the promos left and right without actually getting the money. You're supposed to get the money and then do the promos.
Okay.
We keep having this conversation with you about the order of events, the order of operations for the son of a math teacher. You should be able to process that, my friend. Maybe we'll say it in French next time instead. In any event. event. The Jets and the Predators a little bit later on tonight. It's going to be a good one in downtown Winnipeg. Interesting to see these two teams do battle. I'm expecting there'll be a bit of a feeling out process, I would imagine, for both of these two teams. The Predators at the end of that long road trip, a 4-game road trip that has seen them go from Ottawa to Toronto to Montreal, now here to Winnipeg before they head south to get back home. And of course, the Jets returning from their own East Coast road trip with their 2 games on Long Island and in Philadelphia. So it'll be a fun one. It always is on a Saturday night in downtown Winnipeg. What are you keeping an eye on, both of you, before we wrap up this morning's program here? Is there anything in particular you're keeping an eye on with regard to tonight's game between the Jets and the Preds?
I'm definitely still keen in on that defense, and if they can continue their play from the game against the Philadelphia Flyers, I thought that was arguably the Jets' best defensive effort of the season. Granted, I didn't watch a ton of the Islanders games because we were on a road trip, so I didn't watch a ton of that game. But they certainly were solid on a couple nights ago against Philadelphia, led by, I thought, Logan Stanley. I really think he was solid on that second pair with Neil Pionk. Obviously, Josh Morrissey and Dylan DeMello are still leading the charge as the top pair, but that second pair, going to see if they hold up against an improved Nashville Predators team. And I'm also looking for more out of that second line, right? Like we talked about, Tanner Pearson's up there now on that second line, playing with Johnny Taves and Alex Iafallo, and they've got to produce. We talked about Cole Perfetti, still several weeks, we think, from coming back into the lineup, right, Dave? Like he hasn't been skating yet, so I think that it's going to be a little while. We're kind of uncertain. We'll probably get an update. I imagine maybe next week, Dave, we might get a little bit of an update on Cole Perfetti. Maybe not, but the
point is, it's not anytime soon.
It's not anytime soon.
Imminent coming around the corner,
right? So I'm interested to see how that second line plays tonight. Obviously, Scheifele and Connor have 15 points between them in the first 4 games, so you can't really ask for much more out of Scheifele and Connor. You expect that line to be the best line on the ice. But yeah, I'm just more so excited to watch a much more competitive Predators team, because we talked about it last year. Last year was an absolute tire fire, but this is a team that's managed to put together points in 4 of their first 5 games. And, hopefully that Jets-Predators rivalry is renewed a little bit, even if the Predators aren't going to be a playoff team this year.
Well, yes, he's making proclamations about the Predators' success already. Dave M., what do you?
No, trust me. I took Utah to make the playoffs. I had Utah making the playoffs. I think they're going to be battling St. Louis for that last wild card spot. I just think the Predators are not so much of a pushover as they were last year.
I would agree with that part. I mean, the playoffs part we'll find out more in about 78 games time, but they certainly seem like they're going to be more competitive than they were last year. Dave, same question to you. What are you sort of keeping an eye out for in tonight's contest?
Well, I think I'm going to
besides content for illegalcurve.com, of course.
Well, yeah, obviously. Let's be realistic.
Who's going to be in the celebrity lookalike competition tonight, Dave?
That is always the question. That is always my look. We're basically, when the celebrity lookalike thing comes on, we're like TMZ. I immediately start filming because I'm sitting there hoping it will be the real celebrity, and then of course I see gets to go viral, so that's not such a bad thing. But anyways, no, look, I think as he's right, I think the first line is firing. The third line and the fourth line seem to be finding their grooves. You really want to see that second line get something done. And again, you can really get the crowd behind you if they see Jonathan Taves scores or something of that nature. So that's kind of what I'm watching, and to see that the Jets can maintain their special teams play, and we'll see if the power play can kind of get firing a little bit. And that's kind of it. And then of course, again, I want to mention, Diane Campbell-Scobie, who will be dropping the puck in advance. 91 years of age. She actually trained. I was talking to Adam Lowry about this. She trained to be able to do this. This is something that's been already a year in the making when I talked to the folks at the Toba Center. And so she really is deserving. She's had unbelievable hardship, lost both of her sons, unfortunately. So she's a remarkable lady. Big fan of illegalcurve.com, which makes me a big fan of hers. But she's
just that easy.
Well, I met her I first met her in 2019. Scott brought her for her 85th birthday to Winnipeg for a game. And so I met her. She came to practice. That was actually the year, if you remember, that the boys were coming from Atlanta. And we did the story on the McLean boys, who came and watched a bunch of Jets and Moose games. And that's the first time I ever met Diana. I took a picture of her with Nikolai Ehlers, who I think was her favorite player. So she's really nice, really deserving. And she's, again, making a big donation on her son's behalf to keep their legacy alive and to help the community here in Manitoba. So I just wish her all the best, and the hockey game is secondary in my mind.
There you go, Dave M. Good way to wrap up this Saturday morning edition of the Illegal Curve.
Hold on a second, though. We've been getting extended Moose minutes, but we're not going to get even a short Minuk Moose minute here, Drew?
Well,
no,
I mean,
it's not. It's 11 o'clock, and some of us have places to be. Unfortunately,
come on, as you hit that bumper.
No, they lost last night. There's your Moose minute. They lost badly, 5-2. There's your Moose minute for tonight. We'll talk about.
They did, although as he says, if you want to watch, we have been doing some extended Minuk Moose minute discussions. Still have one with Fabian Wagner, who's a Jets draft pick, and of course, Jacob Julian, another Jets draft pick. So we'll have those up in the next couple of weeks. Samuel Fogamo, who we just finished. We published that one yesterday, and then he scored, not a surprise. Frosty Winnipeg says give Danny Zhilkin, playing in his 100th AHL game yesterday, the 2022 third rounder, he scored as well. So he's already got 2 goals on pace for 48, which is quite a jump for him because he had 3 last year. But he's already feeling good. And you can see, even though, again, the Moose are kind of working through some kinks, kind of like with Nashville, where you got a bunch of new faces, they're a very good team. So they should win some games. And again, those extended Moose minutes are Elias Salamons and Tyrell Bauer, Samuel Fogmo. Those are the 3 we've already revealed, and then 2 more this week.
And sorry, Drew, just wanted to mention that, look, Drew, I want to give Dave a shout out here. He's been killing it with these extended Minuk Moose minutes. Look, there's nobody who's a bigger fan of Dave's content than me here. And I know folks have been loving these, but if you didn't watch the one with Ty Bauer, how would you know that he recently went to Saucers and also just recently bought a record player?
Thank you. See, as he watches it, and of course, I mean, we should mention, as Drew, since we are, that Jets prospect Edison Engel with a big goal. He's been rolling right now in the OHL. And Kieran Walton, after his concussion, goal and assist last night. And then Sasha Boumediene, his first goal for Boston University.
Dave is cooking right now.
Sorry, as he got me going, I was gonna let Drew have it, and then I was like, whatever. I'm already here. Now, in case you missed that, in case it was too quick for you, all of this information is contained in the notes of the morning papers, so with links to the videos.
Big thanks to Mike McIntyre. Big thanks to Chris Mason for their contributions on this morning's edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Big thanks to our sponsors. Play Now, the title sponsor, our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Holt Dental, City Place, Wheatland Hockey, and of course, our friends at Boston Pizza. Support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. We'll be back a little bit later on tonight, right around that 8:45, 8:50 mark for the Illegal Curve post-game show. Until then, keep it locked to illegalcurve.com for all your latest news. If you haven't already done so, smash the like button, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the channel, turn your notifications on, and tell your friends the best place to be on each and every Saturday morning, as well as after each and every Winnipeg Jets game, is the Illegal Curve YouTube channel. Dave M is in the top right, Ezra Ginsburg in the bottom middle. I'm your host, Drew Mandel. Thanks everyone for joining us. If it's Saturday, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.